Hello there, I am Man in Yellow and welcome to another Small Map Strategies video. In this one, we will be looking at the Akira plus Heavies super team strategy. This is a strategy that was invented by Cast, or at least he's the one who came up with it as far as I know, and he's also the one who has talked about it a decent bit, which is why I wanted to highlight it here. The idea of this lineup is that you use Akira together with some very stat heavy strong phobies, and you just completely overwhelm the opponent that way. The big problem with this is of course that Akira is extremely expensive to use on small maps, so this is mainly made to be used on maps where you can just sit back and bang because the map is badly designed. It's essentially like stall maps where nothing usually happens on. You can just sit back and save for this lineup, and it's very hard to beat if you manage to actually get all of the phobies for it and you're not really behind at that point, because you just have so many stats in this lineup. So it uses Akira, obviously, like I said. It uses it because it's able to force a fight. The problem with those maps is that nothing happens on them, and by bringing in Akira you make sure something will happen, because Akira just completely forces fights. As soon as Akira hits the board, you know you're going to have to fight. You're not going to be able to sit in a corner and do nothing. You are forced to fight. So that's the idea with that. And then we have the Glob and the Hydra in here, which both work incredibly well with Akira because they are both very slow, no range or melee range, whatever you want to call it, phobies with very high stats. So by using those with Akira, you can move them forward and you can also bring the enemy towards you, which they both very much like. Usually with Glob and Hydra, the main things you want is to be able to move them and to be able to move the enemy closer, because you already have so many stats in those two phobies that all you need to do is just get in range, and then you have a very good time usually, because they are very strong in an actual fight. Problem with them is of course that normally they just get poked and never get to actually do anything if you don't support them. At least that's something that can happen. So that's what they are for. They work with the Akira because they don't end up in that situation, since you can just force the fight using the Akira. Then lastly we have the Inoculus here, which I think is it's really good, but you don't have to go for it every single time. It depends on the map. The worse the map is, or the more stall heavy the map is, the easier it is to go for the Inoculus. But I found that if you do this strategy on normal maps, sometimes you need a little bit more early game, and then you can cut the Inoculus out and instead bring the shovel to use with the Hydra or Glob early on, and maybe a Unicorn or something like that, which will allow you to survive a bit easier. So you could go maybe Unicorn into Inoculus into the shovel, then bang for a bunch of keys, maybe get one of the Hydra or the Glob out, and then bring Akira. That could be a path you could take, for example. But on the very slow maps, which is what this is really made for, on the maps where nothing ever happens, you should just go for these four, and the majority of the time the Inoculus is correct. So it makes a lot of sense to have it on the core phobies, in my opinion. Then we have the flexible keys, which is nearly no keys because Akira takes up so many keys, and the rest of these are also 4 keys. So you have nearly no keys left after you've brought in all of these. You have only 3 keys. Now the version that Cast talked about used the Gravedigger as the 5th phobie and all of the other keys, which I assume he summoned early on just so he could start destroying blocks and maybe take some points and stuff like that, which makes sense. You can also go for these other ones though. If there aren't any blocks that you really need to destroy, which could go for some maps, then you could go for Stabby or Bomangles instead. You can also choose to bring in this shovel just to give your Hydra and Glob more mobility. You can also push your Inoculus forward to poke people then if you need to do that. Or you could bring a Unicorn with a 1 key, and that will allow you to take a point and put some traps down and stuff like that, which can also be pretty good because pulling people into the traps with Akira would be very strong, which sometimes could happen if you do that. So all of those phobies could be alternatives, and if you cut out this Inoculus, you could also go for any of these down here. If you cut out the Inoculus, there are also some other ones you could go for, but the main game plan is to also use Inoculus with it. So that's essentially the idea behind this. You just sit back and do nothing like you do on those maps, and while the opponent tries to do something like bring in some strong phobie, like maybe they bring a Blastomatic and some other phobies, you're going to be bringing Akira and all of these heavies, and you'll just force a massive fight where you hopefully kill a lot of the opponent's stuff, and they will have a very hard time. You could also choose to do something kind of crazy. Instead of going for these down here, you could actually upgrade this Inoculus into a attractor on the very stall heavy maps, and then you could bring either like a numbskull or a boom alongside it, and you could just pull the enemy completely into you, and then may allow you to get multiple hits with the Hydra and do some AoE with whichever other phobia you bring. That could be a path, but that is like only for the extremely like slow maps that you basically cannot do anything on. Like for example, maybe a crypto match, you could try that on, or the what's it called? I can't remember what it is, Toys in the Attic I think it's called. That map you can also just sit back and do nothing on. So on those you could try that, but this normal strategy also works perfectly well. Just bringing the Akira with the Hydra, the Glob, the Inoculus, and then either a turret or the Gravedigger will do very well for those maps. As for an example maps, I've played it a little. I've played I think 3 or 4 matches with it in total now, and I'm just going to showcase this one. I did win 3 out of the 4 games, I think, but I chose just to showcase this one because I don't want to be showcasing 4 matches every time I make one of these videos. They're supposed to just give you an idea of how the lineup works and how you could maybe utilize it. So this is just a very normal beginning. You can see I used the Gravedigger here. I believe in this game I don't actually use the Inoculus, so there's a bit of variance in the strategy there, but that is because this is not really a stall map, at least not all the time. On this map you can often make stuff happen by using these stim pads to force a fight, so it's not really a true stall map. I just tried to use it here still just to test it, like how well it could do in normal maps. This is still like on the somewhat stallier side of normal maps, but on this map you can at least like force a fight, well, like compared to Crypto or something like that when nothing ever happens on. So you can see I brought both Gravedigger and Unicorn here, which is why I will not be able to bring the Inoculus. These are 2 of the like flex phobies or whatever you want to call them. So that just means I'm not going to be able to do that straight up. And then I bring the Glob here early on, which means I'm going to have to bring a Le Shovel most likely, because that's kind of required at that point. And you can also see I could have moved further out with the Glob just to be a bit more aggressive, but I'm choosing not to do that because the more time passes, the better it will probably be for me, since I am trying to do like a big combo kind of thing. So that kind of plays into my game, or whatever, plays into my hands, whatever you want to call it, if the game goes for a long time. So there's not really any reason to be all that aggressive or anything like that. And now I'm just starting to bang for the big Akira, since it has to wait a couple turns before it comes online. Here, just move things around a little bit to make sure that if they go in, I can at least do something. Not that they were ever going to go in, it was just like to do it, I guess. Bring in the Akira here. I'm standing all the way back here because I don't want it to get frozen or anything. I may as well just wait for a bit because there's no reason for me to really do anything. They sacrifice that 1 key here because they need to get something out, otherwise I'm going to blow up their board completely. I choose to also destroy one of my own blocks here instead of trying to put a block in front of them, because I was like, they are going to be able to kill it either way, so it's not really going to matter if I like put a block in front of them, whereas creating space could maybe be valuable. I also throw away the Gravedigger because I want to be able to bring this Hydra at some point. They end up freezing it, which is a little bit annoying, but I'm also kind of like, okay, at least they spend their cooldown on that then. And then they bring a Smiley in the attempt to try and disease this Glob and Akira, because I don't have the Hydra out yet, which is what makes Glob not really viable against this lineup normally. Could maybe have argued that I should have brought the Hydra instead of the Glob early on, which may be true. I don't have that much experience with this. Like I said, this is like the third or fourth game I play with it, so I can't say if that is correct or not when you want to be bringing that. Also, I don't think they should have actually killed it here like that. It was probably better for them to not kill the Gravedigger there. That may have been a pretty bad mistake. But now I get to bring my Hydra, which means I'm pretty happy with things. This Hydra will do very well for me in fighting the Smiley, most likely. I was also kind of considering going in Oculus just to poke it, but I wanted the stats. It's kind of important to have on a map like this, because the only other stat-heavy phobia I have is the Glob, really. Now I do the big pull, which is forcing the fight like I talked about. And I do this because I want to be able to one-hit this Smiley, so it cannot disease my important phobies. This does end up meaning that my Unicorn has to get diseased, but that's not really a big deal. And I just put down a trap because there was not really any reason to hit it, since it were already going to die to the Glob there. The Gravedigger, that is. So I just hit it for some damage. And as you can see, even if they are hitting this Glob back, it just has so much health they're not going to kill it this turn. And they can't stay in range of it because, I mean, it's a Glob. You don't want your squishy range phobies. I mean, these aren't really squishy, but they would still die very easily to the Glob. Don't really want those to be hit by it. Then we just kill the Unicorn also, which does mean that they get to freeze one of my things because I'm walking pretty far forward here. But I don't really mind that, because if they freeze one of them, then the other can most likely kill this Ice Cream, which is going to be very good for me, so that doesn't really matter. They end up freezing the Glob and then moving away just to be annoying and buy themselves time. But at this point the game is already very hard to win for them, because all I have to do is wait a little bit and then I will win the fight, because I can just use their Akira ability again to deal a ton of damage to them. I end up just walking up and dealing a lot of damage also here. I think I even killed a phobia. Yeah, I think I do that because I used the shovel to move this forward. I could have also just hit them if I really wanted to. Like if I wanted to keep the Hydra out of danger or whatever, but there's no real reason to do that because this thing has so much health. Like, it just got hit twice and it still has 3,000 health right now. The Thunder Rocks can't even go near it. That's how strong it is. And I can just like go back again here and wait for my Glob to come back up, and then my ability on the Akira. I don't even really have to fight them. At this point I could probably have just fought them to make the game end faster, but like, this makes more sense. Like, if we imagined that they had more phobies, this would be the correct thing to do, to not just walk in or anything like that. And at this point the game is obviously completely over. I can't remember if I kill him this turn. I don't think I do. I think I'm like barely a little bit damage off, but like you see, this is kind of hard to beat if you don't find some like other super team or you manage to disturb it early on. You kind of have to kill them early on if people try and go for this, which you, to be fair, can do on any like well-designed map. Killing people that try and do this combo is pretty like easy, because saving for 9 keys is very hard on small maps. If you also want 2 4 keys that have no range on top of it, then it's very, very hard. Like, you can maybe save for Hero 3.0 once you have an established board, for example, but with this strategy you need both Hydra and the Glob, which both can't really fend for themselves without some sort of support. So getting those out first and then summoning an Akira, or summoning Akira and then summoning those, means that you will be very weak for a while. and therefore you kind of need the map to be bad, or for the opponent to just sit back and do nothing while you are building this strategy, because otherwise you are going to get overwhelmed before you can make it happen. Anyway, that was all I really had for this. Like I said, I don't want to do multiple matches too much of the time here for these videos, because they just get pretty long and they're supposed to be fairly short. So I will see you guys in the next one, and let me know if there's anything I should maybe change about these, or if you are enjoying them and stuff like that, because I intend to do a fairly large amount of these small map strategies covering different kind of things you can do on small maps. See you guys in the next video. Bye.